Joey John Maguire. I'm in our Wetherspoons pub, one of my regular Wetherspoons. It's in Hammersmith. It's the William Morris, that's Hammersmith, London, United Kingdom. I'm about to recite my latest poem, which, as always, I wrote in the early hours of this morning. Before I do, it has a certain significance, as it's called Outside Wetherspoons. I think you can see that. Also, it's the last poem in my latest book, of which, on a recent count, I believe it's book number 32, and it's called Ethnic Cleansing by Joey John Maguire. Anyway, here we go with the latest poem, Outside Wetherspoons. I suppose we could all be forgiven for not noticing him. After all, he had slunk into the corner of the doorwell, out of view and harm's way, almost invisible. One might say he was of that age, and the lengths he would aspire to not to be recognized had no bounds. He was sucking on the root of a half-finished cigarette, as if life itself depended upon it, but anyone could see he was closer to death than life. He'd had his day. A sorry sight, where even in the shadows life found its way to betray him, for there was no way of hiding the deep crevices the years had invested in his face, permanently etched for all to see. Some passing made comment with their eyes, others dropped their gaze to avoid, but we all of us noticed as we walked by, hoping to be forgiven for our harsh judgment. Some even heard to mumble, "There, but for the grace of God, go I." His head bowed to the world. He'd suffered enough judgment in his short, dismal lifetime, and his plight told many tales, but who would listen to them now? The sad rantings of a decrepit old man, and who would believe him anyway, that he was once a fit, proud soldier, very much part and parcel pride of this precious nation, along with the many who sacrificed, now sadly dead. Obviously, as it was to all, he was in his final throes. Not much sense in him complaining. Who would listen anyway? Just happy and grateful to exist on his daily ration of stale ale meted out by the government, and the desperate puffs he drew from his essential cigarettes, now his only pleasures. I sensed that he was riddled with guilt of failure. No one had bothered or taken time to tell him any different, and it comforted me to think that as he stood, he actually thought. There are none of us who can claim innocence. All I can see are fools. And as I stood in silence next to him, I wondered if he knew that I could see them too, as I too stood one step back in the doorwell, and I too observed they were all hurrying by in ignorance. Outside Wetherspoons.